Good afternoon. This is Tom O'Hare and Kathleen Dion from Pivotal College Years. We're here for our monthly Talk College segment. We're glad to have you on board here listening and asking questions if you have them as you move through our conversation. We're going to start with, I think, Kathleen, some things that are going on in the admissions world with a little bit of update maybe on what's going on with the Common Application. What are some of the things that I think you and I were talking about earlier that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I wanted to take this moment and serve up some reminders for students who are applying for this coming academic year about the Common App. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to the Common App. We've actually recently developed some videos that are available inside the portal and on the YouTube station that will be helpful as well. But I think sorry, I have my notes here. One of the things I wanted to mention was about essays. Many of you probably are aware of this right now, but there is a COVID essay that's been added to the Common App. So you need to be aware of that. It feels like it's a little bit buried, so keep an eye out. Hunt for it, know it's there, and if you have a good story to tell, craft it well and make sure you include it with your Common App. The other piece that I find students are struggling with these days when they're developing timelines for themselves, because early action applications, or if you're doing early decision, they're right around the corner, usually November 1st or November 15th. Is when you're creating your Common App, you're going to add your college to your dashboard, multiple schools, but don't forget to add your major to each college, because once you add that major in, that is going to start to populate the supplemental essays. So you do have your main 650-word personal essay, you do have your COVID essay, but then there may be college-specific essays that they are asking students to write. So you need to make sure and work those into your timeline, because although the personal essay is the big one that takes the most time, sometimes those supplemental essays can be tough to write too. You need to personalize them, and you really need to do your research and make sure that you're writing valuable answers that are going to help an admissions committee get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, those are great points, because many of those supplemental essays or questions that the schools pose do require students to, or I've found that they do require the student to have a good, strong sense of understanding of what the school is all about. So it's kind of written with the school in mind and what you want to develop from the school. The other is when you're clicking test optional for those schools that you're applying to that are test optional, sometimes there's some additional questions that are being prompted that aren't necessarily based on numbers. They're not, from what I've found with some of the students I'm working with, they're not based on GPA or rank or some of the common things. There's some interesting questions that schools are asking to help filter out whether or not they might need some additional information from you. So I've seen that a couple times along the way. So it's important to, as Kathleen just said, it's important to get ahead of the deadlines and make sure that you're getting your information in. Once your Common App is in, make sure you contact your guidance department to make sure that they are aware that you're filing. If they're not aware right now that you're filing early action or early decision, you need to have that notice put to them so they can queue up their information to get to the schools on time as part of the process. The other part of admissions that I'm working with students with, and I know I've talked to you, Kathleen and Shelley, about, is having students step up their communication program with schools. I am a big advocate of the whole concept of standing out, demonstrating interest. There is a great opportunity for seniors that are scrambling or trying to bring themselves to a close, as well as parents of juniors and students that are juniors, to really develop a relationship with the admissions people. They can't come out and visit. They can't visit schools. They can't go to college fairs. They're doing everything virtually. But more and more schools are now adapting to and are very open and flexible to the notion of setting up a virtual conversation. Mom and dad are doing it in the business world, so students can be doing it in their college planning process. I don't know if you've got anybody that's doing that, Kathleen.
Absolutely. I'm recently working with a student who has been reaching out to the admissions department, as he happens to be someone that graduated last year, and for various reasons he put off starting in the fall because he wasn't going to be able to study in the country that he was planning due to COVID issues. He's applying again for spring, but he's reaching out to the admissions departments as he's handing in applications, and many of them he's already had conversations with, and they know who he is, and it's a wonderful thing. And he's having the other side of that is having valuable information or conversations with them. So, you're not going to call them every 15 minutes and, I rode the bus today. Might have been exciting, in this new world. But if you have improved grades, you have new SAT scores, your verifying information has been sent, those are, all, among other things, are good reasons to get in touch with admissions and have a conversation with them.
Yeah, and it usually starts after the simple registration process where you're going to register for some information. You get a letter back, or you may have already got a card from an admissions counselor. You can go out to their websites and find who the counselor is for your high school or your county or your region of your state that you live in, and you can communicate with them. As you just said, it's a great way to get valuable information because you're not dumping, it's not a data dump, it's not a mind dump of who I am, so to speak. That's the first call. It's like dating. You want to get to know someone, you want to learn a little bit about them, but you can ask some very candid questions about majors, about campus life, about dorms, and that gives the admissions people a better understanding that you are part of the process. You don't want to just send an application in without the school knowing about you, especially in today's COVID environment. It's critical that the schools know more about you. So take advantage of that. We can help individually or collectively. I'm writing scripts for some of the students to help them with what to say and when to say it. So valuable times, use it to have schools get to know you, because when they're sitting down at the table and they're looking at applications, I think that they're going to be able to realize that the student that's communicated the right way, like Kathleen said, you're not going to call them and tell them you rode the bus so you got some Halloween candy. But in fact, you are aware of the school and what they might be able to offer you. So take a look at those. If you have the need for additional tips and information, Pivotal College Years has it in the portal. We've got a great series of YouTube videos that have been produced by Shelley, our counterpart, on various segments of completing the Common Application. So it's great for the DIYers and move forward. I know another topic that we wanted to talk about today is the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. There's deadlines coming, isn't there?
Well, I guess it's not a deadline, it's a start line. October 1st has passed. So your very first opportunity to fill out your FAFSA for the 21-22, if you can believe it, academic year is here. You're going to be filling that out with your 2019 tax information. So you need to do that sooner rather than later. Colleges, there are filing deadlines at every school to get I'm losing the word, it's not premier, but to get first in line for your aid and make them aware that you are coming. So
I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm going to put you on the spot, but what's your thought? I've been reading a couple articles recently in the last couple of days. I know we've been in the business a long time, but do you think that the early bird gets the worm? The sooner you get your FAFSA in, the sooner the school is going to queue up your award letter and allocate aid, and eventually it might not be there at the end?
I do advocate for early FAFSA filing, honestly, just from a logistical perspective. Get it out of the way. It's one thing that people really stress out about, and it's really not as hard as a form as you would think, but it's hard when it's your form that you're filling out. So I do think that there is something to getting it done sooner rather than later, which mitigates the stress within the family, and it gives the family the opportunity to focus on the admissions part. The important thing that many people don't realize is you are not going to get an award letter from a college or a university until you've actually applied. So back in the day, you could file your FAFSA. You didn't file it until January, which meant a lot of early action applications were already in. So you were getting, you would get award letters that would, those two items would be in together. Now, if you're filing your FAFSA on October 1st, putting a college that you're interested in, you haven't sent in your application yet. So it creates a little bit more lag time, but I do advocate for early filing.
Yeah.
How about you, Tom?
Yeah, definitely. If especially number one, if you're an early decision or an early action candidate, you want to prospect, you want to get that FAFSA in. The other is if you really haven't thought much about how you're going to pay the bill, how you're going to deal with college costs, filling out the FAFSA may be your first introduction into ability to pay. And the conversation regarding what the family contribution, which is the result number that's produced from the FAFSA, as well as potentially the CSS profile, starts the mathematical calculations. It allows a family to look at what their demonstrated need is, and that's the difference between total cost and family contribution. And it can be a striking number, especially if you don't have a lot of savings, if the student hasn't really applied, number one, or the student isn't really well known at the school, to really be able to fill that full gap that's needed. So getting that in, starting those conversations, and being realistic about the schools that we're applying to. If the cost is not acceptable in the sense of being able to handle it from a family standpoint, you want to have multiple schools in the mix that are going to be able to be good comparisons of total costs and aid awarded. So not only is it important for the schools to be able to start delivering information to the families, it's critical from the standpoint of doing the ability to pay conversation, to meet college costs. You can't wait until April of next year to realize that the school we've all fallen in love with is out of our budget, and the debt tolerance to be able to handle that means a $30,000 or $40,000 private loan times 4 for a student. So yeah, there's a lot riding on it. It's easy, as you said, it is easy to complete. There's some simple information that need to have ahead of time. If nobody has that, we can provide it to them. From the standpoint of your 2019 tax returns, your W-2s, what you're going to report and what you're not going to report, and probably a good strong cup of coffee, and to do it. And don't forget to have your FAFSA IDs ahead of time. And
Yes.
for families who are going to do it again, your sophomore and junior year, and you didn't save your FAFSA ID and password in a secure location, I'm not talking about the smartphone that fell into the water and now can't be found. You're going to scramble to get that thing replaced. So FAFSA ID first for parent and student, and then you launch the application, but do it. I saw a striking thing the other day that upwards to 43% of all eligible individuals going to college, traditional community, professional, trade or professional, didn't file the FAFSA last year. So if that's money left on the table, even if it means it's a student loan, because if you don't have the FAFSA on site, you can't get the direct student loan that everybody gets, regardless of income.
Yep.
So yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what I used to tell families all the time. The FAFSA is letting the college know that if there is anything available, you want to know about it. You can even be passed over for non-financial, types of aid, not based on need, just by not filing the FAFSA, the college is going, oh, they're all set. They don't need anything. So there may be other forms of money that you're giving up that is institutional money, not even federal aid, by not filing the FAFSA. So it's
Right.
really, really important. And if you're hunting for scholarships, a lot of times, especially scholarships that might be rotating around financial need types of, qualification points, a FAFSA is usually a qualifying point. So just get it done.
Yeah, definitely over the last 5 years, many scholarships that were that were merit-based have now become blended between
Mm,
merit and need. And the FAFSA is a requirement to report it. Sometimes sending a copy, sometimes sending your results to them. And definitely, if you don't check the box that you're applying for financial aid, if I was the financial aid person working with my admissions counselor, I'd say, hey, there's a full payer coming down the road. So file it. If you need help, look out to all the resources. There's many resources in your cities and towns, in your states. Even the folks that we know at AAA in the Northeast help schedule appointments to get it completed. So it should not be something that's missed in the process.
absolutely. Which also brings up the CSS profile, which I
Yeah,
think some people not confuse it, but they feel like, oh, it's just another form. It's another form that's important. This is a form that's run by College Board. So you would go to a College Board to access the CSS profile. Some of the main differences is, one, you have to pay typically to file the CSS profile unless you qualify for a waiver. And they're
yeah,
looking for 3 years of information versus one. So not to scare people, but I call it a FAFSA on steroids because it's more information, but it's purely about institutional money, but it is important. And if you're questioning whether or not your schools that you are applying to are requiring the CSS profile, I would recommend going right to the college website. Financial aid page will usually say that. Typically, state schools, places like that, are not asking for the CSS profile. It's usually colleges that have a larger endowment to make decisions about. But there are, what is it, up to like 800-ish schools that are using the CSS profile these days. So it's another form that you need to file if they're asking for it.
yeah. So just a quick recap. Everybody should be filing the FAFSA. All schools in the United States, Canada, and even some international schools that are doing need-based financial aid awarding on behalf of the school, the government, the state, are looking for the FAFSA. So that's number one. And then, as you just mentioned, there's a smaller population of schools that look for the CSS profile, but it all springboards the ability to get a financial aid award from the schools that your students or students are applying to and have submitted applications, so that you can look at affordability and financial gap that may have to come from other resources. So
Yeah.
good points of information. Hey, what's happening on December 31st?
Oh, people are starting to pay their federal loans back.
Yeah,
So everybody, hopefully you are aware of this. If you even have direct debit out of your bank accounts, that has ceased for many people. If you are paying on your federal student loans, those are in deferment until December 31st, 2020. The great thing is you are not earning interest on any of that money, which is a lovely feature. All that said, if you're someone that is, not having financial repercussions from COVID pandemic, I am highly recommending to everyone I'm working with, make your payments, because it is a great opportunity to dig deep and get rid of some of that principal balance because there is no interest, but it
right.
is still on hold.
Still on hold, and this is the second extension. Some private lenders have followed in pace with it, so that their loans were also put on hold. A small majority have not. So you may be paying on your private loans and not paying on your federal loans. It's a good time to look at your current budget, your current financials, to see if in fact you need to maybe refinance your education loans if the interest rates are really above 3 to 4%, and you're, needing some extra time, it's a good time to start refinancing, especially if you are working during the COVID, because the rates have come down. They're at some of the all-time lows for refinancing. And loan consolidation with the Department of Ed's repayment benefits is also a good area. So put some emphasis into that area. We do have some information on pivotal college years that can provide you some guidance on refinancing and loan consolidation and managing education loans while you're out, when you're done and you're out working or going back to school as part of the process.
I also wanted to point out for those of you who are fulfilling your public service loan forgiveness, this moment in time, you are still, qualifying. And then for those of you who might have lost a job during this time, it doesn't mean you're out of the game. Those 120 payments that you make do not have to be consecutive. So if you have become unemployed and then you end up back at another organization or maybe back at the same one that will qualify you again, will fulfill the work component, you can get right back on track. So I've gotten some questions about that recently. I just wanted to let everyone know it's still possible. There are so many people who took on a lot of debt and they're banking on that happening for them to be able to get out of debt someday. So it's still possible.
Yep. Especially if you didn't, the other point about that is although your loans are frozen, I've read recently that you have to make sure that you get your recertification done. So the loans are frozen, you're in public service, nothing's happening, but your application, in a sense, needs to be renewed on an annual basis. So make sure that you are doing that, whether you're in the military, a teacher, or working in a government position, as well as the other qualifying roles. Get your human resource department to sign off on it and get it submitted to the department. Because yes, once the clock comes back and starts ticking, they may start flagging for those. It's like renewing your driver's license. Make sure it's so you don't get pulled over and lose the benefit.
Same thing with income-based repayment plans.
Yep.
Technically, right, you don't have to do it because you're not making payments at the moment, but if stay on track with that. If they're asking for the documentation or they're sending you, servicers are now sending you notifications saying, oh, you don't really have to do this right now, but it's that time of year again. I say take it, just do it, get it done, stay in the system, because I get clients every year that miss the deadline and their payments go up to a shocking number. And it takes it takes a little bit of paperwork to get it back down. So don't fall out of the system, stay in step and get that paperwork taken care of.
Yeah, and if you have questions, you're concerned, you can talk to your financial aid office at the school that you graduated from or attended. You can go out to the Department of Ed's website. I want to caution individuals to be very leery of organizations that are doing robocalling to provide debt consolidation or student loan forgiveness benefits. As of this point, I have not seen Congress, although it's been proposed, to eliminate anyone's debt. So the organizations, they are providing a service for a fee. And what they will do is help you submit your application for public service forgiveness or work with your lender to do a refinancing, but you're paying a fee for that service. But they're pitching you on the idea that they're going to help eliminate your student loan or educational loan debt. It's not going to happen. So be very conscious of that. If you're scared or nervous, there's enough nonprofit organizations and service providers that can give you the guidance along the way to not get sucked into that scam.
Yeah, starting with your servicer, whoever you're making your payments to on your federal loans, can certainly start the ball rolling and answer some questions.
Yep, whether it's Nelnet or Sallie Mae or Navient or AES or the various organizations that are out there. Start with them. If you have questions, I mean, their job is to help you, even though they're dealing with a call center type environment. Their job is there to help you and keep your loan in good standings because they're working on behalf of the lender or the federal government to keep that rolling forward. So critical, critical. One thing I wanted to sort of bring up is the idea is if you're not working or as you get ready to go back into work or you're looking to find a job and you do carry student loan debt, don't hesitate to start a conversation with your hiring manager or your human resource or the owner of the organization about how they might be able to help you with some of your student loan debt. It isn't as rampant or as popular as I would want it to be, but there are companies that are helping under the concept of paying down student loan debt, where for an additional $100 a month in compensation benefits, they'll set up a payment that'll come right out of your income, right out of your paycheck, and go towards your student loan. So, typically companies have tuition benefit programs. You take a class, you get a B or better, you pay for it up front, they'll reimburse you. But the idea of helping to move along the payment of your student loan as part of hiring or retaining you is a conversation worth having. If you need to learn about it, Google pay down my student loan debt, and you'll see some interesting articles to get some research on it.
Yeah, and I just brought up on our website the Changed link, and that's an organization that's focusing on the same thing, helping people to pay down their debt faster and easier. They set up a whole process, whereas as you spend money, it's like a keep the change concept. What certain banks do, they would slide that extra change over to your savings account. These folks are sliding that extra change to your student loans. And that's something that I've been talking about for years. People don't think that they should pay extra on their loans unless they've got an extra $100 or $200. And who has that? Our money's going other places, but you might have an extra $5 or $10. And over a lifetime, it actually does add up. No one got rich all at once. Very few people got rich all at once. The lottery winners out there. Most of us saved our pennies over many, many years to hit that mark. So you can get out of debt just like you can save. So places like this are helping to that cause as well.
Yeah, good point, good point. Yeah, check out Pivotal College Years. I know we both read an article and talked a little bit about it. In closing, I wanted to bring that up with regard to what's going on as a result of COVID and students seeing their positions at school and housing come back where they're going home. Schools are adjusting the cost of education, adjusting the cost, which ultimately adjusts financial aid packages, which in some cases, I know you mentioned earlier today when we were talking that you spoke to someone as recent as yesterday who now needs to come up with some additional funding to pay for the tuition, the direct costs, because they've actually gone home. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so cost of attendance is a big term that covers a lot of ground. It's tuition and fees, it's housing, it can be transportation, it can be a computer, but because students aren't necessarily going back to campus, choosing to live at home or have to live at home, their cost of attendance number is changing. So people set up their financial aid a month or so ago, depending on the school that you were at. They were working off the award letter that was developed with the intention of a more normal academic year, and now things are changing. So it's just about that time, about 30 days, especially for incoming freshmen. You have to sit in that seat for just about 30 days before any federal money drops to the school. They know it was coming, which is why they considered your bill paid. But if that cost of attendance has changed in some way, your aid might be getting tweaked a little bit. So you might want to log into those school portals, just make sure that everything is as it should be. And if it's not, just know that, there are options available for you, through federal programs or not. But just make sure that everything's on track, because believe it or not, your students will actually be registering for their winter term or their spring term really soon. It happens sooner than you think, and if there's a hold on their account, they won't be able to do things like that. It'll start to hold things up.
Right, so don't be surprised if your student coming home because of COVID has adjusted the cost as well as adjusted and it's primarily housing, room and board, some of the incidental fees, not necessarily direct tuition and fees, that's being adjusted. And as a result, they have to have an adjustment into their award letter because of the regulations about over awarding and the use of the program. So it's a good point. Contact your financial aid office, go out on the portal. If you see any discrepancies, so to speak, have a conversation. You might have to be coming up with some additional out-of-pocket funding to cover that cost, or make an appeal. Make an appeal based on the fact that, you know, your family situation, even though you've come home, is still dire because of COVID-19 or some of the other issues that are going on in today's economy. So good point, good point. And what's your map showing right there?
So everybody's always interested in what's going on in the country with colleges and COVID cases. And on the 8th, the New York Times wrote an article, so I just was pulling it up so people could take a look. Some states are doing better than others when it comes to colleges, when it comes to K through 12, when it comes to life in general. So I just brought this up as everybody could take a look-see, and you can certainly access that article and you know, get a better idea, some more specific information about how each state is doing, and you know, which colleges have cases and how many, and get some more details. Stay in the know.
Yep, stay in the know. The National Association of College Admissions Counselors, at their website, they have some good tools available also to double check, you know, who's doing virtual tours, what kind of tours they're doing. I'm keeping track of those as a way to see what schools are starting to let people back on campus. It's a little bit more popular that students and families can do their own drive-bys, sort of like going to the neighborhood at Christmas to see all the lights on the trees and the houses. You can do a drive-by through a school. They're not going to kick you off. You can check out the facilities. It doesn't necessarily get you to talk to someone, but searching and evaluating schools continues to be a challenge. And we're able to provide some ideas and information if you want to contact us through Pivotal College Years to provide that. So we're coming up on our 30-minute timeline. Do you have some closing thoughts for today that you'd like to share with the group?
No, no, just no. To be completely truthful, no, just seniors, hang in there. Your lives are getting busier. Stay on those common apps. That's the biggest thing right now. Make sure they get in on time. Do not miss deadlines. They are there for a reason, and many colleges, you know, aren't making exceptions. So make sure you're getting your things done. If you're like me, you'll have an Excel chart and follow it.
Yep, this weekend through pretty much next week is the time to get those cranked out and in, so then the guidance counselors in your schools can be sending information in. Even if it's after Nova 1, that's fine. But as long as your common app is registered as having been submitted, that's good. So for juniors plan for the future. We don't have a crystal ball or Harry Potter's, you know, cauldron to look into. But I for one, am a half glass full individual. So think about what it'd be like to be on a college campus when you're going in as a freshman, 2022, 2023, I think, if I have that number right. So plan for the future, keep your college planning going, get a hold of schools, and everyone, if you would, don't forget, you can sign up for Pivotal College Years. It's a free resource available to the end of the year, chock full of information for college planning before, during, and after. And it's also got some great videos, webinars, and folks like us that are trying to provide some resources along with our counterpart, Shelley Honeycutt, who's not available today. So we thank you for joining us. Look forward to maybe having you on again with us next month. If you liked what we're talking about and how we're talking about it, tell a friend, let someone know about it, and thank you for being here.
All right, have a great afternoon, everyone.